In this video, we'll discuss a strategy for projects where you have a large amount of topography data and you're not sure where to put the road. So we're going to use a staged approach where we're going to start out using a low resolution topo surface. We're going to complete a preliminary design, figure out a rough idea of where we'd like to put that road, and then we're going to use that preliminary design to isolate an area of interest and create a high-res topo surface in that area of interest to actually take our design to completion. So we'll look at our example file here. So I have a road here. I've got undulating terrain, so it's not clear where I should put the road to get to our desired location out here. In this example, I'm going to just use a reasonable data set to work with. So the reasonable data set is small enough that in reality I wouldn't have to use this staged approach. I could just go with the high-res surface right from the get-go. But we're going to pretend that that reasonable data set is much larger, where this strategy makes sense to use. So let's start right from scratch. I'm going to open the terrain module. I'm going to click Insert File. I'm going to insert my Lidar data. In this case, it's LAS data, but it could be LAS, LAZ, or DEM data. If I knew on import that I wanted to reduce the resolution of that data, I could reduce the resolution right now using the Selection tab. In this case, we're going to pretend that I'm not aware of how much data that I'm bringing in, and we'll do it after the fact. I'll hit OK. As those points are being drawn in, I'm going to hit cancel just so we don't have to wait for each one of those points to draw. But I can see down here I've got 2.6 million points. Now I'm going to just click off to the side those points. The display properties turned off, so they disappear from what I'm looking at, but I can still see I still have that 2.6 million point cloud. Now, with that, let's pretend that instead of 2.6 million points, it's a number that's unreasonable to model in a single file. So depending on your computer specs, the practical ceiling will vary, but a typical rule of thumb is when you get much more than 10 million points, you're going to start to see performance deteriorate. So if that was 26 million instead of 2.6 million, it would be a red flag that maybe I should either isolate my data into an area of interest, leave the full resolution, or maybe I should reduce the resolution and use this staged approach. So let's reduce our resolution. So I've clicked Terrain Modeling, Simplify, and let's use a 5-meter grid. So with that, we are saying that we're not interpolating a grid off this point set. We're placing a grid of cells that are 5 by 5 each, and we are limiting it to 1 point per 5 by 5 cell. So we'll hit OK. And we're going from that 2.6 million points down to 137,000. Let's take that data set and we'll model it. So Terrain Modeling, Generate. We'll go 25 and 5 for my contours. There we are. And I've already got an image that I've downloaded that we'll use when we do our design. I'm going to save this as Topo. I'll make a little note here. Topo low res. And we are going to switch over to location. I'm going to reference that topo surface. And I'm going to quickly just do a few things here to set this up so I can have a better idea of what's going on. So I'm going to add in an image that I've already downloaded. as a background. Going to zoom to extents here in my 3D view. I'm going to turn on the surface. I'm going to turn on a surface for my design roadway. And I want that surface to be transparent for my topo, so I can see it if I'm in cut. And so we want to go up to here. I'm going to start by designing my first road, and in this stage, I just want to click it in enough that I know, or I can be confident that I'm generally in the right location. So here, I'm going to just quickly do a preliminary design for 2 different options. In practice, you may do as many different alignments as you wish to explore to a point where you're confident that you're going to pursue the best option. And in this case as well, I'm going to be driven mostly by economics. So I'm going to use our optimizer to optimize both those alignments really quickly and then compare the expected costs of those preliminary alignments before choosing which road to pursue. I can see horizontal alignment 1 is significantly cheaper than horizontal alignment 2. So I'm going to use that to isolate my area of interest, and I'm going to pursue refining this one. Now with that, I'm going to click File, Save As. I'm going to save it as prelim alignment. I can save it in whatever format I'd like. It could be terrain. Could be shape. I'm going to go with terrain. I want it just to be my current alignment, and I only want my center line in this case. I don't need cross sections, current alignment, center line. I'm not going to model it. I just want to open up terrain automatically. Zoom to extents, and we can see there is our alignment. Now, I'm going to take this, I'm going to click Insert File, I'm going to take that LAS data, and I'm going to use the selection tool here. So I'm going to say I want to add in a corridor. I'm going to use horizontal alignment 1 to define that corridor, and I want a corridor width of 200 meters in this case. Now outside of that corridor, so this, I'm going to go with number of points skipped to 0. Outside of that, so my default area, I'm going to set the number of points skipped to be whatever I'd like. So if I just wanted a lower resolution data set outside of that, I could. In this case, I don't care about that data at all. So I'm going to go with number skipped all. I'll hit OK. So we can see now we've only brought in our data along that corridor. I want to model it as I previously did. We'll go with tighter contours in this case. There we are. And I can control how that looks by adjusting my maximum side length. So if I want less interpolation outside of that corridor for surface, I can. We can see what we're dealing with. I'm going to save this as Topo high res. And then in this current design, I know I don't want to pursue horizontal alignment 2, so I'm just going to delete it. And I can switch my reference topo surface to that higher resolution data. So I'll click corridor, options, terrain surfaces, topo, browse, topo high res instead of the low res. I'll hit OK. I'll hit OK. Updates our plan view, our 3D view. We have to click Update 3D Display List. But there we are. Now we have the highest available, highest resolution available for our surface to take this design from that prelim level to an IFC level.